Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. Bringing to you today's daily lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah. Today is lesson 67, dedicated, of course, to the safety, health, well-being, and prosperity of everybody facing all kinds of different types of obstacles and tribulations today. We will overcome them. We will get through them. We will look at a thing, we will investigate it, we will penetrate it, we will diagnose it, we will see its component parts, and then learn from our Sefer Yetzirah how to take those component parts, rearrange them to form a new way of looking at things, a new way of thinking about things, and needless to say, a new way of doing it. Now, this is exactly where we are at right now in our text. We're in the 4th chapter, and we're talking about the 7 doubles. We introduced yesterday the relationship of the 7 to the 10, in that this Mishnah, in our version of the text, Mishnah 5, is the only one that makes the profound statement like we discussed in chapter 1. Chapter 1 spoke of 10 sefirot, 10 not 9, 10 not 11. And here we speak of 7 doubles, 7 not 6, and 7 not 8. We discussed what that meant, so I don't really want to have to repeat it. But we left off with the words, Bahon behen v'hakur behem. We're supposed to test with them and explore or experiment with them. Well, what exactly does that mean? How do I do this? Or in other words, when we are dealing with this material, all too many people look at it and continue to look at it as theoretical in practice, if you will. They don't really get their hands involved. For them, this is philosophy in a book, ideas and thoughts to contemplate in the mind, and then it never translates from there into the world of reality. That's why this stuff usually never works. Let me digress for a quick second. For those of you who don't already know, I have courses online in which I go into all the deep stuff of like holy names. The 72 triad name, the 42 letter name, the 22 letter name, and I actually give you practices and techniques and functions, things you can actually do to make these names work for you. But the nature of that work, again, is not magical. You can gaze at any of these names and feel that energy is coming into you and doing this and that thing to you. Mazel tov, as we say. Fine. You can believe whatever you want. And even when your beliefs may not be correct, if your emunah or a faith within them is correct, you can materialize parts of or more parts of that which you seek. That's the power of what we call in Hebrew emunah or faith. Faith is not in the external form, it's in the internal essence. And that is why every human being can have faith. No, faith is not defined as the name or identity of your religion. You have, of course, Christians who, if you're of the Catholic persuasion, they have faith in the Virgin Mary. Protestant traditions and faith in Jesus Christ. In the Islamic traditions, of course, you have the Sunni and the Shia, each with their own, in quote, expressions of faith. In India, the numerous expressions of various spiritualities. Even in modern atheist China, you still have those expressions of a relationship with something, if you will, deeper than our conscious external mind. And it's that connection, that depth. Some will call it God. Some will call it spirit. Some will call it the universe. Some will call it whatever. It doesn't matter what it's called. It only matters what it is. So what exactly is, in quote, it? Right? I'm going to go meditate. I'm going to meditate on God. Well, who is my God, or what is my version of God? Personally, as an Orthodox rabbi, I look to the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, and I see God as revealed in his name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Havaya, as we call it. And that is, in quote, the image or vessel for or name of my God. But as we described in our previous lesson yesterday, as well as other lessons, our expression of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is only that expression of God which is receivable to the human experience. And that's why it's called only the small face of God, Ze'er Anpin. Is that the God to whom we pray? Yeah, but at the same time, we recognize that the ultimate abstract Ein Sof of God is within, like the Sefirot are in the letters. So in that respect, we have a semblance of a relationship. And you can nod your head, yes, Rabbi, we know this. Yes, Rabbi, we know this. Okay, we read it in the book. We understand. No, you don't understand. You have information, but you don't yet have knowledge. Remember, in the Bible, the word knowledge is used for a sexual level of intimacy. As it says, and Adam knew his wife Eve. So that level of intimate experience is only acquired when we test and when we explore. Now, we have minds. You and I have the ability to think and experience. So again, what is it that I'm looking for? Well, where do I go? Now that is the good question. And the answer is found right here. We have the 7. The 7, as we see, are archetypes of energy. One side of which can give us all kinds of blessings. The other side of which gives us all kinds of curses. Right? You can have wisdom. You can have folly. You can have life. You can have death, beauty, ugly, wealth, poverty, and the others. All of these things have within them influences. So you could put your nose to the grindstone and bust your butt to make money. And even with the greatest plans of intelligent wisdom thought out, you still fail. Why? Somehow, somewhere, something happened that became a stumbling block and tripped you up. Does that have to happen? Well, I could just jump in and say, no, of course not, have faith. But remember what faith is. Faith does not mean anything goes. Whatever I want to believe in and pray to God for, God can make happen. Oh, really? Okay. So how about I pray to God for, I don't know. How about that big global national lottery ticket? I'm going to pray, God, dear God, make it worth 10 billion. I'll fill it in dollars, euros, pounds, whatever. And make me the sole recipient thereof. And I'm going to do my meditations and I'm going to sit there, close my eyes. And when you win that 10 billion, call me, let me know. Drop me a line, email. Because that is not how meditation works. That is not exploring or experimenting. Exploring or experimenting means within the context of the laws of nature from the place of that Hechal HaKadosh, which is Mechuvan Be'emtza, placed in the center that we learned about in our previous Mishnah. And it says that is the place from which all are supported. What does that mean? You have to experience that for yourselves. So through the rest of this chapter, we're going to have letter by letter, a bet and a gibel and a dalet. And we're going to make correlations. And You can nod your head and say, okay. But remember, we're dealing with an ancient text, which has numerous different versions of it. And therefore, the correlations between the letters and what we're going to see, planets and days of the week and the like, are going to fluctuate and change from one version of the text to the next. And you can look at translations, I believe, like by Ariel Kaplan, and I think he has a list of all the different versions of the different correlations. Dramatic pause for you to think about that. Because if you're going to ask, well, which is the real one? Who will respond? Every rabbi who offers an opinion is going to say, well, this opinion of mine, of course, is the right one. Now, my opinion is the, in quote, right one. Dramatic pause. For me. What is the right opinion for you? How can we have subjective correctness in the meanings of text? Well, explore, test, discover. As you learn the correlations of the planets, for example, to the letters and to different body parts and the like, you can use the sounds of the letters with the vowels and correlate them to or chant them with the letters Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke with their vowels, and use this as an external tonal device for the focus of concentration, which will then allow your mind, through the power of imagination and intellect, merging together. That's that Chokhmah Bina Sechel Tunudah stuff that we discussed way back when in chapter 1. And allowing you to gaze, to look, to explore, and to experience for yourselves. So, let's look at the planets, the stars of which we had spoken about in our previous class. In ancient tradition, there were 7. There was the Sun, Mercury, Venus, the Moon, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And each one is said to have an influence on an hourly basis. And every single day, therefore, has, as sunrise is, a specific planet which dominates or rules that day. Don't think this is weird and old and unrelated. All of the days of our week are still based, the names are based upon that. Sun day, moon day, okay? Look at the other names in, I think, like in Spanish or stuff, and you'll see the correlation of all the different names. Thursday is Thursday, corresponds to Jupiter and the like. So, what does that mean? Well, that's a good question. And rather than me drop to note or to text to say, well, when you have a planet which is dominating at the sunrise, it has an influence of the day, which is XYZ. Well, can I write that? Of course. And I can quote to you other books who have also written it. And I can prove off my rabbinic scholarship by saying, it's written in this book this, and this book that, etc. But what about your experience? Remember I said, with regards to holy names, there's no intricate power in them per se, other than the power of our own personal emunah that we imbue into it. It's the same thing with this. Astrology, in my opinion, is technically not a science. Now let me say that with a caveat. The relationship of location to the planets, fixed science. That's even astronomy. But to interpret it as having psychological effect, that is astrology. And that's different. And the only way you can actually correctly plot a chart astrologically, yes, you can look at where your planets are at the time when you were born, correlate that to the day and the hour of your birth, and recognize through interpretation of all of these symbols what that means as a psychic diagnosis of your personality. I don't want to say that word prediction because there's no predictions here. That can be done. Days of the week, hours of the day, astrological or stars. So for example, Sunday is Day of the Sun, right? Christians knew that very well. That's why they called it the day of their, in quote, sun. Sun like S-U-N and sun S-O-N. No, come on. Yeah, well, go study Christian history. I mean, there's a correlation there. But okay, whatever. That's not the point. The point is that when you start to recognize what all the symbols are suggested to mean, you contemplate these things on an individual basis. And as you experience within your own imaginative faculty coupled with your own intellect, remember, intuitive, intellectual, you will gain your own personal insights. You will recognize how the Sephirotic energy actually and functionally materializes here in this world. In yesterday's class, we mentioned briefly feng shui. And I told you the difference in idea and concept between the Hebrew tradition, where a man is facing normally east, and the Chinese tradition, where a man is normally facing south. And how by that difference of psychological orientation, remember south and east are metaphors, not necessarily physical locations or directions, things change in cultures and in psyches. What Carl Jung would have called the racial subdivisions of the collective unconscious. What are we doing with all of this? What is its purpose? Well, med davar al-buriyav. You establish, the word Hamed means to stand a thing upon its creator. In other words, we have a teaching from the Gemara which says, Shitufim anu b'ma'aseh bereshit. We are partners with God in the acts, ongoing acts of creation. And that should be clear to anyone. So for example, right now, we are using computerized audio visual technology to communicate. Who created this technology? Well, God did. Well, no, I really don't think God has the copyright, in all due respect. I don't think God came down to the lab and actually built the physical apparatus. But that which we can call that divine spirit, remember the original ruach, that comes down through all those different levels into the minds of the individual engineers and scientists to inspire them. Hey, let's do things like this. Let's do things like that. They are exploring. They are experimenting with the laws of nature. They're doing what we're talking about in practice, whereas our book, in our forms, is teaching us how to do it, how it was done 1,000, 2,000 years ago, through the power of a tonal technology which complemented psychic meditation. Our modern day scientists in the big labs, they might not be meditators, they might not be mystics, they might not pray or believe in God or anything of the kind. But I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to tell you one thing about every one of them. All right? Go find, if you're a secular scientist and you work with discovery and engineering and stuff, do me a favor, write in comment, you tell me if I'm wrong. You have insights. It's not like all of a sudden you read everything from a book and you put together the building blocks. No, you realize there's some, in quotes, cement that comes out of here, out of your mind, that makes it all happen. Or otherwise it won't happen. This is the exploration of which we speak. Hoshev Yotzer al Mechono. Restore the former, which is the underlying energy, to its place. Everything in our world today is in what we call in Hebrew a balagan, which means a big mess. As they would say in Moroccan, the harira. All right? Everything's all messed up. Chaos. Tohu v'bohu. The most important thing is for us to experience within the original order. This is why we use the pattern of the 10 Sefirot as our guide, because we reflect it within ourselves and allow it to reveal to us the reality of the external world. And then when we see that, it helps us build things, whether those be technological devices, physical or political, social or economic structures. This is how we build and repair our world. Check out the other courses that I have available for you right now. You can learn more about these things and the practices. And we'll take it from there, and I'll pick up in our next class as we continue exploring the secrets of the seven. Shalom.